now.
Good evening, everyone. We're here at the WTC. I'm Joker of Contact Lost. With me at the moment, I've got Nathan Henning, also known as Stats Dad.
Stats Dad, I love that.
Because we've got two Nathans, so we've got to differentiate. And we've got a very special guest in form of Adam from the Army Painter. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, it is. It's late now.
Yeah, it's pretty late. Round one is in full swing. There's 45 minutes left. Scores are starting to come in. We know all the pairings, which we will go into a bit later. First, Adam, how are you enjoying the event?
I love this. So I'm a former coach for Team USA. When I started playing competitive 40K, it was my goal to get here as a player eventually. I got here as a coach, and I fell in love. I mean, where do you get to play 40K and nerd out with people from all over the world in this manner, where you have these teams and nation versus nation, and you'd think it's highly competitive, and it is, but there's so much camaraderie, and it's an amazing experience.
Yeah, totally. So, how many times did you attend as a coach?
Only once. Then COVID happened. So,
right. Was it the year that USA went 6-0?
It's a year after. Yeah. So it was closer to Mike. There we go. Thank you. Thanks, Other Nathan. It was the year after. We had a really solid team. We had a little bit of a tragedy within the team that year, but we pulled through, and I think we managed to finish in fourth. But it was a solid year. We had some new blood on the team that year, and obviously some veterans. Nathan's still championing the team as captain, and he's always the safe bet to win some games, right? I think that year he 20-0'd every opponent. Worst person in the world to coach, by the way, because you get no information from Nathan in the game. So you might have 3 models on the table, his opponent has 70, and you're like, well, this looks like a major blowout. And then Sean comes in and he says, yeah, it's 20-0.
Okay. And it does sound like the kind of wizardry you kind of expect from somebody like Nathan.
He is a magician. He plays it on a different level than a lot of people do.
Yeah, I work and make a podcast with Anthony Vanella, and he's like his personal goal for people to beat essentially at this point. Just like he wants to play him and wants to beat him all the time.
I will say I am 1-0 against Sean Aiden.
Oh, so 100% win rate.
Yeah, 100% win rate. So I have that going for me.
Yeah. I definitely want to clip that and send it to Nathan later.
Oh, he knows. I tell him all the time. I love it.
It's perfect to brag on here. So
what's that?
It was perfect to brag about it here. So
I'm
glad you brought that up.
So the whole world knows.
That's good.
So how has the partnership of the Army Painter and the WTC come around?
So we've been involved from the start with Tom and Neil and Isik and the WTC, and we were very excited to see this event form and kind of become its own thing for a lot of different reasons. But Tom, Isik, Neil run a fantastic event. And from my point of view and our point of view as a company, Bo, who is one of our founders, is a former player for Team Denmark multiple times. This is a very important, event for us. And I think that nothing else will grow the game as much as something like, let's consider our Olympics, our World Championships, tabletop wargaming. This is the pinnacle of wargaming, in my opinion, in our opinion. So obviously we wanted to support it. We're very happy. To turn out.
Right, and you've got like whole booth. You've got the repair station. I really love that.
Yeah.
And people really like 5 minutes before round one starts, someone's sitting there just fixing
There definitely were today during those meetings.
I'm going to call out Team England because they had 3 players at the repair shop painting their miniatures within like 30 minutes of pairing. So
yeah, I was lucky enough to see that.
I definitely did see at least one Irish player running there for blue at one point. Because he'd apparently checked his Knights Army and it came in shambles.
That's rough. Yeah, I checked my army. All right, I brought my army in the bag. Shout out to A-Case, by the way. No affiliation. I love the company. They're great. And that case saved my entire army because I was able to take it in the overhead compartment.
I definitely decided to skip all of it and just borrow somebody's army who had to fly it instead for singles.
I'm an army painter, man. I got to bring miniatures. I paint it.
I know. I was too frightened. I was scared to bring my painted army along. I was like, look, international travel,
yeah,
terrifying. Absolutely.
Get yourself a good case you can fit in an overhead compartment. Highly recommend it.
I like that.
You might have to play a smaller army, though. That's the only thing. GSC or Tyranids are not making the cut here.
The a predisposition for running only Poke armies, so Drukari and Tyranids and stuff, and there's never a good end. So.
Just throw them and follow me.
We promise none of this conversation is sponsored by anyone. So what about the giant booth you've got over there?
Yeah, so that oddly enough, that booth was designed for the Nuremberg Toy Fair. But we went for the first time this year in February, end of January, February. And shortly after that, actually the week after that, we talked to Tom. We actually had Tom at HQ, and so what can we do together? How can we make this bigger? What do you need as an event? And for those of you that play in tournaments and attend tournaments at home, for most TOs and organizers, it is not a profit generator for them. This is something that they do for the love of the game and for the love of the community. So in order to keep these things running, they need sponsorship and they need investment. And who better to do it than us? My experience and Bo's experience with this, we love this event. We want to see it grow. We want to see it flourish. We think, again, this is an opportunity to grow the game. How better to do it? I mean, you guys are streaming. We've got War Games Live. We've got streamers from Germany, France, Spain. That's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I hope that we have streamers from South America here in the future and all over the world, because I think that this is the opportunity to take competitive wargaming to the next level and showcase. Yeah, it's about beating each other up on the tabletop, but there is an awful lot of camaraderie involved.
I definitely will say, as I was walking through the rounds as games were starting to wrap up, you see people trading the jerseys off their backs with one another, like almost immediately. You see people handing over dice. You see a lot of a lot of international friendship, essentially. And people who have intimately not even met each other.
Because of this event, I have friends all over the globe that if I ever end up in Northern Ireland, I know that there's people there that'll help me out if I need it, right? In Sweden, you name it. And that's the beautiful thing, because you're walking into an opportunity, and that's the beautiful thing about Warhammer 40K, in my opinion. You try and win the game, but you have 3 hours, essentially, to make a new friend, right? To build a relationship, to share an experience together, win, lose, draw, blow out, let catastrophic stuff happen on the tabletop, that you're forging memories. And I think that that's one of the most incredible things about tabletop wargaming. And Warhammer 40K. I mean, you go look at the Northern Ireland, the Danish match right now, and there's a Danish player with his shirt off and a Northern Ireland player with their shirt off. And they say if the game makes it to round 5, the pants are coming off too. Those guys they are forged through a very hot Belgian room of, you don't get that playing softball. You know what I mean?
You don't get that anywhere else. I think even for people who aren't playing, the ability to meet all these players, be able to talk to these captains, talk about the way different people think about 40K in the game, get to trade experiences, thoughts, and even meet other people who are doing stats analysis. For me, it's very exciting. So I get to talk to people developing matrices now as the game is kind of developed in a direction where people are interested in bringing data science.
Yes, of course. What I think is also really cool is it's an opportunity for some of these smaller nations that are coming, and it's their first, second, third year they're developing their national program. Where else, other than some of the big individual events, are you going to see the likes of Matt Morris, Adam Camilleri, Nick Nanavati in recent years, Manny Chima, Sean Dayton, all these big names of our game are all here, right, representing their countries, and I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah, and I think you can agree that the event is also growing with each year. I really got the impression this one's bigger than last year. Also, feels more professional, teams expanding, etc. So it's not just about the playing, to underline your point about the camaraderie, but teams having more people involved. It's
more coaches
adds to that.
Canada has a coach for every 2 tables that they have. When I coached, I was the only one. America has 3 coaches now, right? But also think about what the organizers have done here. I mean, you can't really see it on most of the streams. You can see it here because it's in the background. There's banners stretching the entire, what do you call it? I arrived at 7:30 this morning, so I'm going to slip on words. So jet lag hit me pretty early. But, there's branding everywhere for all the sponsors, not just Army Painter, but every one of the sponsors here. We've got the flag banners up. You've got a bar, restaurant. They've got the lounge area where people can watch the games when they're done with theirs on TV. They're really upping the game, and I think they're setting a new standard. I think I said it earlier. For me, this is the pinnacle of wargaming, and they're really pushing that standard and really setting the tone for how Warhammer 40K competitions and wargaming competitions in general can grow in the future.
That's a new legacy chair. Yeah. Right. Last but not least, Adam, I heard you've got a surprise for the patrons of Contact Lost.
Yes, absolutely. Well, before we get to that, this is all about giveaways, right? Like, let's just do some giveaways. We're gonna do some giveaways for y'all. But right now, we are doing the biggest giveaway that we've ever done in our company history. We're trying to get to 100,000 followers on YouTube, subscribers on YouTube. Today, we hit 75,000. So we've doubled, as of today, our subscriber base on YouTube. But we're giving away massive products. Every 5K, we're giving away products. And when we reach 100K, a lucky winner is going to reach an entire speed paint rack. That's like over 300 speed paints. So if you don't already subscribe to us on YouTube, please go and do that for your chance to win. So we got lots of exciting things, big news coming. We don't want you to miss out on that. But what I would love to do is offer you guys a speed paint mega set for a lucky follower at home. I don't know how you guys want to do that, but for the celebration of the WTC and y'all being here and supporting it, we want to support you guys. So speed paint mega set to the lucky follower.
Yeah, so we're very thankful for that. Whoever becomes a patron until the end of the WTC will be involved in that raffle, and we will have more details on that as we work them out. Now, Adam, it was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much.
We're going to have a short video now prepared by the Army Painter.
Yeah.
We'll show that, and in that time, Adam will leave our studio. And speaking of famous players, we're going to have Ines and Yoko on after the video ends. Hopefully, they'll make it in time. Thanks very much, Adam.
No, thank you very much.
And we'll see you.
Thank you all.
Later on.
There's more to gaming than miniatures and paints. It's the friendships that emerge,
What's
the
that?
kinship that is created, and the community that brings us together at the table. That's why for 17 years, the Army Painter has donated millions of dollars in prize support to conventions, wargaming tournaments, paint and takes, and hobby events of all kinds. During the pandemic, we provided game stores and events with millions of bottles of hand sanitizer free to help get gamers and painters back to the table safely. That's because we're passionate gamers and hobbyists too. All Army Painter products are designed by gamers for gamers. Products that are high quality and affordable, user-friendly and accessible. Products that make painting more enjoyable, simpler, and help you to get more time for gaming. From the original Quick Shade Dip to our color primer sprays, war paints, airbrush range, industry-leading speed paint, and so much more. We design products that we want to use because we're playing and painting at the same tables you are. Whether we're chasing trophies, teaching seminars, or just letting our nerd flags fly, we love being a part of this community. We innovate and celebrate in equal measure because this community is better when we do it together.
That was smooth as we'd hoped it would be. But nonetheless, we now have Ines Wilson of Team Scotland and Jokul Johansson of Team Iceland here. So Scotland versus Iceland was like probably the hottest matchup that we had at this round. Wouldn't you agree, Nathan?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and more than that, Ines and Jokul got paired into each other. So they're both players of proven track record in the UKTC and other places. So guys, which factions did you play and how did the game go? Jokul, want to start us off?
Yeah, I played Eastern Colt. Yeah, and I'm playing Dark Angels. It's a rough mission, the first one for Eastern Colt, so I knew I was going to be up at it, and Ines played very well, so he took the win.
Okay. Any noticeable moments in this from the game? Like any game changes?
It's definitely one of those games where the Deathwing Knights just get to walk forward, and as long as you play carefully with them, it's very hard for you to ever really deliver damage to them. They can hide behind a wall. So in that kind of game, it's very easy for the Deathwing Knights to walk forward, staying within infiltrator screen range, so that nothing can keep strike on top of them for demolition charges. At which point, I can just incrementally build up advantages through dealing damage with Desolation Marines to the point where eventually I break through. There's no more threat on them, and the Death Knights can go rampage through his army. Unfortunately, Yoko went first. Had to bring his demos and charges down on turn 3. I was able to use the squad tactic strategy to bring myself out of threat range of them because he has to commit one squad. I can do allow one to come down, then the second, move away, and now Yoko has no damage output, and I'm able to go through the game at that point. It was really unfortunate with Yoko. If Yoko had gone second, he would have had a lot more opportunity to deal with that, but it just didn't quite pan out the way that it went.
Yeah, it was interesting. We're doing estimates around the round that's going to go, and I was told we were down about 10 points, so I took a bit of a risk and kind of went for it. So I just gave up protecting my blips and went for killing the Deathwing Knights. It's a 3-up roll to save his Deathwing Knights completely and leave my my bombs without a target. I can either clean my backfield and maybe get two or 3 more points, or go for the kill on the Deathwing Knights and maybe that's probably 4 or 5 extra points. But I did go for it and I think we won 3 exactly. And yeah, it was a exciting game.
Right. And how did that game come to be? Like, because it sounds like it's not a favorable matchup for you. So how did the pairings go that you ended up playing this game?
So this was actually something we expected. I have a very bad matchup into Brian's camaraderie. He's got 20 Rift Guard. This is the worst possible mission for GSE. So I knew that if they always, I expected them to keep both Innes and Brian left team with me. I offered them to try and get out of it. I offered them a matchup that's mediocre at best in the T-zones, and I was just looking to outplay that matchup and get more points. They went for a worse matchup with the T-zones to avoid picking me. Fair enough. But then it's the third defender. So they have 2 lists that are good to me and 2 lists that are very bad to me. And they took no risk and guaranteed the matchup. But yeah, that's it. I could pick Innes and Brian, and I knew I'll be getting close to 0 against Brian. So I went for Innes and
Yeah, Yoko definitely went for the braver option of the two, of dodging Brian and trying to smash some big points. It was definitely appreciated. It was really great to play Yoko for the first time. It definitely was one of those ones where in the back 4 pairings we basically had like the option of trying to pair for like 2 really good pairings and 2 pretty bad pairings, or taking a risk on getting 3 very good pairings and 1 like catastrophic pairing with our GSC going into Eldar, the same matchup that Yoko was trying to avoid with Brian, and we went for the small risk there, and it ended up paying off. Which is one of those things when you're playing in the pairing system against someone who's good as Yoko, you've always got to take a risk like that to try and build up an edge, and I think it paid off for us.
So you'd say one of the keys to success in a pairings process is taking those risks that you think are like bad stuff.
It's one of those where taking risks in the pairings process is fine as long as you understand that there's risk involved, and that it's calculated. You can't just be throwing wild cards like, oh, we'll just first round with our GSC. That's not the kind of risk you should be taking. It's the same as 4K, right? Play to your outs, but have a backup plan.
I think the key thing is we looked at it and we did pairings where they went for exactly that strategy of trying to pin me, and then we went for pairings where we tried very much so to avoid that and like not trying to avoid that and just getting favorite matchups instead, just look better on paper. And I think it was Fred that told me this, that like everyone wins in pairings. Always looks so good to people because they expected. I think in this one there were a few that we knew more about, the few that they knew more about in that. Yeah, but interesting. Yeah.
So you guys have sparred a number of times from what I've heard, like the preparations together, etc. Did that affect the pairings today?
I'm not sure.
So it definitely, one thing it did, it definitely helped with was knowing who the stronger and weaker players on the Icelandic team were, and obviously they got the same advantage to us, where we could, a matchup that would be a small win, we could maybe push a little harder for that kind of thing, and then we try to pair their better players into our better players to try and keep the average level where we have the advantage. So anything where it's a weaker matchup, we tried to make sure it was a better player into that matchup, that kind of thing. And having that kind of knowledge, obviously, with the risk that we took, we all people going into this. 1 in 9 is not 0, and it was very disfortunate that we pulled it out. But Iceland played a blind of a round, and I wish them all the best success going forward because they've got a great roster this year.
Absolutely, it was interesting. We had a player drop again this year. Problem with having a very small country, but we actually got a better player instead. Okay. But that's and I guess you guys had a guy drop as well in the last minute, so we didn't know who that was. So it was very interesting. Like, I guess you didn't know our new guy as well. He's very good.
Yeah, well, we didn't know our runner guy until yesterday. So
Were there any other pairings in your team's matchup that you thought were really exciting, or kind of results that you were looking forward to seeing?
So I played at the town, played to our Custodies guy, and on a very difficult map. I think you can get some points for Custodies. I know that they think it's very bad for Custodies, and if you lose the game, but I think you can get a lot of points. But I think that was one that we were okay to go into.
yeah, we have that as like the winning side of a draw. Heiner is obviously one of the best players on the Icelandic team, and it's great to see him playing like every angle of the scrap at points. It's just incredible to see someone of players caliber playing an incredible game.
I guess one thing to clarify when I mentioned that a player who would have more time to prepare instead of a stronger player when I mentioned that earlier. So yeah, it's hard to address with players doing that. Yeah.
And do you guys know how the round is going for your teams in general? What's it look like?
I think we're getting maybe 65, 60. I don't know.
So that's like Scottish win.
I think maybe 30 points.
It was looking good for us. When last I checked, we had 4 wins, 1 very big loss, and 2 or 3 games that were kind of hanging in the balance, but looking either drawish or winning side of a draw. So
and one blowout.
the absolute blowout. Our just circle player is getting absolutely blown out of the water by Michael's right guard.
I think maybe 95, 55.
Yeah, I think something in that region. It seems there's definitely been bigger wins in the WTC. There's definitely been bigger wins in WTC history. I see they've done a really good job. I look forward to see what they can do.
Yeah, so a very nice match. Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for coming in, talking to us about the game. We will let you off back to your teams as you're obviously needed. The round's coming to a close. So yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you so much for having us.
Now we're going to switch to our field reporter. Actually, no, we're not. So we're gonna have Typhus and Nathan back, and we'll see where that takes us. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello again.
It was long time no see. Right?
Yeah.
Very much so.
Very smooth.
I definitely didn't see either of you at all for the whole time in between these things. Not
No.
once. Not even a single game.
So Typhus and Nathan have been running around the floor, trying to find out some interesting bits from the games that are currently going on. So, guys, what have you found? Nathan, anything interesting you've spotted?
So, obviously, you just discussed probably the more spicy round, so we'll leave some others. Had a conversation with the Australian coach, and some of their matches versus New Zealand have kind of coin flipped the other way, but they still feel like they should be coming out with a comfortable, smaller win, rather than they thought the pairings went quite well for them. So that's interesting. That was the other kind of spicier round that we were looking at, more for geographical reasons, than say maybe gaming ability. But yeah, that was quite a good one. USA doing their thing, smashing people. Canada absolutely smashing their opponent, which is maybe a little bit not unrealistic, but they're doing what they're supposed to do.
England
Polish
also absolutely smashing people.
England had a good innings. Definitely, I think after 6 games, they're 110 points up, so that was good.
I think this round, whenever we were going through it in midst of the games, was quite hard to assess unless you spoke to coaches, because how the mission works is unless you know which markers are disappearing throughout the game, and unless you know who's going first or second, it's quite hard just from the game state to see how it's gonna develop. So even though there were some games where you could see that one player was already dead at the table, then only if you looked at the score from a given game, you could see that it didn't matter because opponent scored 0 from primary. And this mission, I think, is one of those that will tend to create those very high wins, because if you get to push your opponent out, they sometimes have no way of fighting back. But throughout the round, I found 2 interesting matchups, because beforehand, we were talking about UN teams being more of a mishmash of players from different nationalities. One of those France throughout the round, they were sweating against UNT. And when I was grabbing them 1 hour ago, they were like, "We are not sure. This might not come close. Like, it might be a draw. We might not win." Afterwards, when I was talking to them 30 minutes ago, it seems that they finally got it, but it wasn't as easy as it seemed. And same thing applied to, I think it's Ireland versus Norway, not Northern Ireland. Correct me, because otherwise they will kill me.
Ireland versus Norway.
Ireland.
Yeah.
It's regular.
It's
It's
regular
a green
Ireland.
Ireland.
I'm sorry for anyone that's offended right now. I'm just dumb. But Ireland versus Norway, that matchup, we were talking that Norway seemed like a team that's going to be better than in previous years. And already they said that one game went the other way, something flipped, which in this mission I can see that happening. And they are going to have a draw or maybe a win by a small margin, which I think is a start for them to actually maybe go to that 4-3, some those areas for what they are aiming for. But other than that, I find this round is not much of a surprise, and I don't think we expected surprises.
Not particularly.
The pairings are between teams that we kind of had like some expectations with going in. You have seed ones going into seed fours, right? And those feel like a little bit more certain in some ways. Although you do see, like you said, those UN teams kind of sweating a little bit. And when you look even at the Germany versus the other UN teams, some of those scores probably look a little bit tighter than maybe we anticipated early on.
Yeah.
Those countries.
Yeah, but in general, the seed one teams are pulling it through.
And some of the teams that we had pretty like high expectations of, like Spain, are also very much dominating their rounds in the other teams.
Yeah, I think on an individual player level, there's been some upsets, but actual teams, not as much.
Like you can see some little things. Like there is like one matchup that England lost essentially in 18-2, but otherwise, like all the other ones are equal. So, like very high scoring wins.
So, Stats Dad, you've been looking at pairings for the last couple of minutes. Have you found anything interesting?
So there's some interesting stuff in here. I need to yell at the microphone. I will yell at it. So I'm waiting for the rest of the data to kind of come in to really give people some stats analysis. So what we'll probably end up doing based on the speed of how these things comes in and out. Because at first, when I was looking at the pairings, I only had a few in the system, and I was starting to get a little nervous about how much of this I was going to have in advance. But some of the things are kind of interesting, and some of them, when I was talking to Nathan between these things, actually make more sense as I talk to people who are more expert, which is why we had Nathan next kind of here to like draw me back from some conclusions that I had pre this. So like talking about Eldar's matchup into GSC and stuff like that, you can also definitely see some instances where people are doing things like just throwing a list at Eldar and like watching it get totaled, and then trying to make that back up in other spaces. So one of the things that we'll be pulling out later is we can look at some of that data, and I'll try to pull some of that out as we move across. We can pull out some of the information, like what are the pairing philosophies that we're seeing using the stats. It just won't be right now, right? But there are some interesting things. Some teams are definitely throwing Gene Stealer Cult at Eldar, which to me looks like a positive matchup in one direction. But also, when you talk to Typhus and Nathan, you get the opposite information back, which makes sense when we broke down those pairings like a little bit together. Which actually, Nathan and Typhus, you can break that down and kind of explain, like, maybe some of that philosophy is.
Yeah, so again, it's a little bit dependent on the Eldar list, but predominantly I would say like the double Wraith Knight versions of the Eldar seem to come out okay. They're pretty difficult for GSC to deal with. They've got Eldar tend to have enough little bit of screening to push things out from where you necessarily want them. Big monsters kind of stop you dropping onto the objectives so they can do a bit of primary denial. But if those Wraith Cannons, because it's Blast, they're getting, 10 to...
It's D3 plus 4 usually into those 20 mans.
Yeah, so your average is 12 shots. If you get a couple of 6s to wound, you literally take most of the squad off. So that's where the damage output is so devastating. And once I should say, for this event, one use only weapons, when you bring them back, you don't get the one-use weapons again. Some tournaments have ruled that demo charges, you can reuse them again and again.
Or hunter-killer missiles.
Yes. At this event, you can't do that. So if you, for lack of a better word, blow your load, then unfortunately, if you don't do the damage you need to do, and Wraith Knight's being -1 to wound, and also having -1 damage, you might not really drop the things you need to. They've still got the objective. They start pushing into you. Wraith Guard, when they shoot, again, devastating wounds, you can take up whole units, and they just keep charging as well. With Guide, the unit gets 33 attacks. They can club guys to death. So, yeah, you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
I think the data we see when it comes to Eldari against GSC doesn't necessarily represent how this matchup goes on upper echelon of the game. When you see very experienced players playing it against each other, and that would be interesting to see how it would develop over time, the whole event. When you see more of those really elite tier players playing against each other. So, yeah. No.
I would say that there are some other interesting pairings. My favorite pairing that I've seen so far is Chaos Space Marines into Eldar, which we saw in the USA versus Cyprus situation.
Yeah, I've had the chance to speak to Anthony because Anthony Violence Vanilla was playing against that Eldar list, and he said that his opponent made few blunders. That when you are playing against Obliterator heavy list and those Terminators with Abaddon, so if you make one positioning mistake, there is a problem because if he rolls well on advance on the squad of Terminators with Abaddon and also deploys in a way that he can shoot another squad, you can only phantasm away one thing. And if you miss deployed, suddenly you lose one of the key pieces because both of those units, when they hit. And you cannot do anything about it. So it's very punishing if you make one mistake. And I find that this specific mission also favors those less mobile armies because as we are playing Hammer and Anvil deployment, this means that the mobility of Eldar is not as much of an use because the other armies who are moving only 4 cannot be penalized for stuff running away.
So, Typhus, you've mentioned the mission makes it easy to get higher scores. Would you say it's a good mission to play for round 1 when you've got Seed 1 teams playing Seed 4? Doesn't that just increase the gap?
I don't know. Some rabbis would say yes, some would say no.
Why don't we explain a little bit about the mission that they were playing and kind of like why these things are so high scoring? So, Typhus, why don't you explain the mission, kind of give us a lowdown on
So,
why it is?
First of all, I don't know the name of the deployment in the new pack. So in previous packs, it was Hammer and Anvil. So you're deploying on the short edges, and you were still deploying 24 inches away from each other. Maybe it has changed this edition. I'm sorry, I do not know. That's how my brain works when it comes to registering those. But then the problem is you have 3 center objectives and objectives in your deployment zones. And objectives in your deployment zones give you 0 primer. So if you are a defending player, you cannot score points for playing defensively within your deployment. And just holding back, running away, just screening yourself and just going for points, sending it into opponent's deployment zone to do a mission, etc., etc. This doesn't apply as much in this mission because you're essentially fighting for the mid board. So because of that, and furthermore, you at the very beginning of the game choose one of the 3 mid-board objectives will disappear at the turn 4 and which will disappear at turn 5. And you are scoring points only for holding objectives in the middle. This means that if opponent has time to push you off the board and get the primary, you later might not even be in a position to fight for the last marker because he will overpush that last marker that he knows disappears in turn 5. So you might be getting zeros from primary for 4 turns and only be able to fight back at turn 5. But at the same time, opponent scored nearly 50 points from primary in the same time. So that's enough for a 73 score. But if you add to that, that most of the missions are like, make it action on a no man's land zone objective, cleanse, or stuff like that, this also further pushes this. Because you not only are not scoring primary, but nearly half of the objectives in the secondary deck are also not as good when playing this mission. So, anything to add?
Yeah, again, like we said, it's one of those missions. In some games, some people can sit on 2 objectives for 4 turns, or 4 scoring turns, get 40 points. Your opponent, yeah, he's taking the table, but he only gets 50, difference of 10. In this, like Typhus says, if you push those objectives and just take them, you don't have one in your deployment to sit on. So now he's getting 50 and you're getting hardly any. And like you say, when you see that objective, a lot of people just make a beeline. So if you have a board control army, this like we were talking about earlier, that's where the differential comes in. Because they're actually getting nothing and you're actually getting maximum. So yeah, this mission snowballs heavily.
So you're looking kind of for armies that can kind of exist in the middle or move slowly, like being able to hold those objectives and withstand damage as being the advantaged armies.
This is one of the missions when we were mentioning matrices and how you create estimations for a given round. This is one of the missions that can flip a matchup you estimate as a winning one suddenly into a losing one, because you know you will be holding back and then scoring at the end because you have resources for that. But suddenly, for this particular mission, you need to have a completely different approach. And the same thing will apply later when we'll be playing round 3, which also I think will be very spicy when there's seed 1s, we'll be playing seed 2 on another mission that's like that. I think this will be very interesting to see.
That'll be something to look forward to.
Yeah.
So, have we had any results actually come in?
We
Right
have
now.
started to have results actually come in, so we've got a few final results. So I'm going to try to look at this microphone while also reading my computer, which will be interesting. We do have England winning against Bulgaria 126-34, so quite a differential in scoring there.
That's what we were also mentioning. If you are that seed 1 team, you want to win high. And 124 is a very, very good score.
And we have 106 for Spain, 54 for Romania, so another very high differential score. Scroll down because these are not organized in any way. We're only starting to see some final results come in. We have Sweden winning 142-18 against Israel. We have Finland winning 100-60 in Wales, so a closer differential in that situation.
When you get into 20 points difference from drawing, sometimes it's even one matchup going wrong. 160 sometimes looks like a solid win. Sometimes it looks like a flip when drawn. So you need to have in mind that those might have been way closer than they look like.
We have Canada winning 112 to Croatia's 48. And let's see if we have any other final results in yet. We have Austria 129 to Latvia's 31. Iceland and Norway drew.
Ireland.
Ireland. Ooh, I'm sorry. Ireland. Now I'm in trouble too now, bud. Man, Cal's going to be so mad at me for misreading. Ireland and Norway drew 82-78, so that's that differential that we were talking about before. Just because you win that by a few points does not mean that you're going to win that round.
Now, interesting, sorry, while we're on that one, were the results predominantly floating around 10s, or is it everyone's getting 20s and everyone's getting zeros?
So it looks like we have Chaos Space Marines into Gene Stealer Cult. We have an 18-2 there
For Chaos Space Marines.
for Chaos Space Marines. We have Necrons losing to Chaos Knights, 3-17. We have Eldar winning 17-3 into Chaos Demons. Death Watch losing to Custodes 6-14. Custodes beating Death Watch in the other direction, 17-3. So we have some flips. I think the only 20-0 that we have is
Norway Eldar into Ireland Chaos Knights, but I think that's not a surprise.
But then we have
Not at all.
some very close ones on. Yeah, that actually looks like somebody got kind of thrown under the bus in order to take that Eldari off the table. Imperial Knights lost 1,000 Suns 9-11, and then
So that was one close.
what was that?
And
So
that's another close one.
And then there's one more close one, which is Gene Stealer Cult into Necrons, which is a 12 for Gene Stealer Cult and an 8 for Necrons. So we have some close ones and that are making up kind of those differences for a few large swings.
And then we have
USA winning against Cyprus 148-12, which is a bit of a shellacking, I suppose, when you look at it that way. Denmark beating Northern Ireland 111-49. And that's all the results we have so far. I'll refresh us again maybe a little bit later on if we still have some results. But like I said, because we're getting the results kind of late in the round and our cover starts a little bit towards the end of rounds.
Rounds should be ending within 5 minutes or so. So we might be seeing them all come in very soon. From my experience, it looks like some of the players sometimes even forget to put it into BCP and then need to be chased by the coaches or referees. Like, what's going on, guys? Why is it not in?
I will say for like Australia versus New Zealand, we're only missing one, so we can probably make some like abstractions of what's going on.
Yeah.
It does look like Australia has 1, 2, 3 20-0, so that feels pretty likely to be in Australia's
And then
favor.
13 and 15 and 10.
So those
They already won the round.
Yeah, that already won the round. We're only waiting for one.
Jeremy
matchup to win.
and David Gaylord, but looking from our point of view, they already finished their game.
They just haven't submitted.
They
their
haven't
score.
submitted, so I assume this means New Zealand lost by a huge margin.
We are also waiting for Germany versus Malta, but we are seeing most of the results in. We have a 19-1 for Necrons and Chukari for Germany.
And there's one matchup that I really want to point out. That's German Chaos Demons playing into triple Valiant list from UN, losing that one 13-7. So triple Valiant with harpoons finally got those whales
Been down.
We might have to talk to Grisha. Hopefully, I say your name correctly. I probably didn't. And Aaron, and see kind of how that game went at some
I
point.
actually talked to Aaron last night in the bar, and he's like, I'm either going to kill people or I'm going to shame people. So that's where his plan was for this weekend. He's like, I'm just going to harpoon people to death, and they're going to have to go back to their captain.
And I do think the England score. What did I do?
I think we read it out. But
I think I
can,
read it. I'll come back to
But
it
we
in a
can
minute.
say again.
One of the ones that I'm actually most concerned about right now is that we don't have a lot of scores in from France versus their UN team.
Yeah, but they were feeling quite confident when they approached their coaches.
They do have 220, so that does feel a little bit more certain. But like we've seen before, there are some ways to kind of bring that back slowly
Yeah, but
to another team.
whenever we are having all of those conversations, if you listen, you hear how many 20-0s are actually happening. I think this is very specific to this mission, and further down the event, we'll see many, many less of those.
And again, we see, I think, a little bit of a pairing philosophy thing here, where again, with Francis Eldar, they kind of got thrown what looks like an Imperial Knights player. It's a 20-0 for that Eldar into that Imperial Knights. Definitely starting to see maybe a little bit of pairing philosophy for Eldar coming out. Scotland did end up winning into Iceland 102-58. I don't think we had heard that one before. So when we had Innis and we had Yokolan and they were predicting kind of like that score, it does look like their scores were maybe a little bit further apart, but definitely a win for Scotland with Innis feeling confident about that. Belgium is beating Portugal 110-50. We did Sweden. We're waiting for Switzerland.
Luxembourg should win this big. I saw them.
Really?
I saw their games, and I had a conversation with their captain and coach. Looking just from their games, they might not have submitted all of them yet. I already saw some of those games that are not yet submitted, but it looks like a solid loss around 120 points for Switzerland.
Interesting, because it's funny because I talked to Luxembourg's captain, and maybe it was before you talked to him because he seemed very frightened about what was going on their tables when I talked to him.
It wasn't good.
Poland is beat South Africa 119-41. I'm not sure if I got to that one before, but that is now done. Wales, which we did already. Canada, Croatia, which we did already. Greece losing to Italy.
So this is
42-118.
another interesting one because Greece was seed 2, losing to Italy, which was top seed 3. And Italy, this might be a start of them actually going for a very good streak this year, because I think they might be undervalued by a lot of teams.
We talked about Czechia and the Netherlands, I believe. That's 164.
Yeah, Netherlands won.
Austria, which with that big win over Latvia. Ireland and Norway's draw. I seem to have lost England because they're at the top.
So has there only been one draw?
Just the one draw so far, yes. England won 126-58 to Bulgaria's 34 for the person who was asking about it in chat, I believe.
Yeah.
So
I think not many upsets. Something we expected. Only games that we were contentious about were those seed 2 against seed 3 teams. And we already see some of those results being interesting in the sense of Norway versus Ireland becoming a draw, Italy smacking Greece around, or what was the third one that we had already? I can't recall. But in general, I think this is looking quite expected. I think this was the most straightforward round of the event.
and we are starting to get into the remaining of Germany's pairing information. So it does look like they are going to win their game against the UN team. France, we're still waiting on all their information, even though we're overtime. Yeah, doesn't look like anything went too far from the predictions that we had earlier today.
Yeah. Tier 2 against Tier 3, we can see Belgium winning by a decent margin. That's something we expected as well. Belgium is, I think this year they are even stronger than last year because they do not have Tomadjani, which was involved very heavily into preparation of the event as well, which, even though he is a good player, hindered his preparation for the gaming part of the event. And now with them having
That's New Zealand and Australia having a nice team v team post match picture with a spear.
yeah, so I think Belgium winning is not a surprise. I want to see if they continue that. I wouldn't be surprised if Belgium manages to get points from Australia.
They're the prep kings, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
it'll be very
They're
interesting
really good
tomorrow evening.
They have insanely good players, and they, I think, upgraded their overall skill within their team. Right.
I guess one other pairing that's interesting from a score perspective is France putting their Chaos Space Marines player into the Eldari player for the UN team, with that being out 14-6, maybe a list that's meant to peel points off that Eldar player to turn a 20-0 maybe into something like a little bit more respectable as well. Or, maybe sometimes, like we mentioned, you can get that spike on that, and you can just pick up one of their units. Maybe the spike didn't happen as hard.
So what was the Australia-New Zealand score? Because I didn't hear.
114-46 with New Zealand.
Oh, right.
I guess
So-
we'd been waiting on.
We are just talking about it earlier, right? You hear people being like, yeah, so we got 3 flippy matchups going against us. And throughout the round, even if you're a coach or captain and you see everything happening from the very beginning, usually players are very bad at assessing what's happening and how the projection will look. So you're always stressed, very battle clench all the way. But at the end, it's usually as expected. But throughout the round, you have players that are unsure because they haven't played it this way that the opponent is playing. So how the game is developing is usually unknown. So then you have those games that, as I said, you hear, we don't know, 120.
Yeah. And then we do have that score from that David Gaylord versus Jerry Martino game with Chaos Space Marines winning at 12 to Death Watch's 8.
Okay. Seems expected.
Yeah, that's
Did
about-
we have any upsets in that Australia-New Zealand game? I heard some rumors. Don't know if they're true.
So there was a moment, I think, there where I was looking at my scores and I saw Liam Hackett got 20-0'd by somebody, but the score was actually inputted correctly and it was flipped. Liam Hackett actually 20-0'd his opponent, but I'm sure that for a brief moment, all of the fans in Australia were having a little bit of panic as one of their star and well-known players got 20-0'd by somebody. Well, hopefully they were all saved a few minutes later by the score being turned around the other directions. But it doesn't look like anything too strange in that situation, actually. Although when I was talking to their coaches, they said to watch that Tyranids versus Gene Stealer Cult matchup, and with Tyranids taking it over Gene Stealer Cult 20-0 as well for that situation.
I think at this point, guys, I will go and see if there's any interesting matchup to interview and be right back.
Okay. So we'll try to pull in some players to see if we can get some interesting input on some of that play today. There's only so much we can talk about from a pure, we're looking at matchup data as it comes in. Even when we talk with coaches, there's still a certain amount of unknowns as the rounds go on. because, like Tyvus said, your players are a little bit unreliable when it comes to matchup predictions.
Yeah, so I was coach for 3 years, and you would think that these people who are some of the best players in your country would know where they are in the game. But unfortunately, you go around the table and they're like, it's looking like a draw. It's like, well, the score sheet doesn't seem to indicate that, but okay, if that's what you think it is. And then you go and tell other people to push for more points because it looks like the round is tight. And then you ask them again an hour later, and they go, oh yeah, I got 18-2. Like, well, you need to be able to tell us where you actually are in the round. So yeah, usually coaches midway through the round, don't always have all the information they need to actually give an accurate score. And obviously everybody's pessimistic. And
The rest of the UN and France games are coming in right now,
Right.
so it's kind of interesting. So we were talking about. I was saying that this might be like a little bit closer than anticipated. So we have that 20-0 into Imperial Knights. We do have the UN, which is Slovakia. This is the UN A team, winning against France 14-6 with their Gene Stealer Colt into a Thousand Suns player. The French Chaos Space Marines losing to Eldar 6-14. But then we have France with multiple 20-0s to kind of pull that back with a 20-0 of their custodies into their opponent's custodies, a 20-0 with their Gene Stealer Cult into a Space Marines list, and a 20-0 with their Necrons into a Chaos Space Marines. But then another very tight one with their Astra Militarum into the Thousand Suns for Slovakia. So that's a very close result, really, because of several games. And it might be interesting at some point for us to pull the French and the UN team coaches aside and see how it kind
yes, yeah. So what was the final score for that round?
We're
Not
waiting
yet.
for one more matchup to come in, which is the French Black Templars player, Olivier Weiss, and the Slovakian Tyrannus player, which is Marek. We're waiting for that to come in.
I think that really makes Spot 7 even more interesting. I mean, it was one of the more interesting, if not the most interesting ones anyway.
Mhm.
But now if even the UN team's causing a bit of an upset to seed 1 France, then tomorrow is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, that feels like a tightening that we're kind of seeing, and maybe you two have some input on this. Like, people are starting to say that like the level of player has like steadily been increasing, like kind of on average, and then also with the amount of information that's available for players in all countries, you have access to a lot of top level talent players, either through tools like TTS or also just through like the internet, essentially, and the vast majority of podcasts and like other content being produced at like high competitive levels as well as coaching, like being available from a lot of places as well to other people.
Yeah, but I also think the teams format's becoming more popular, and especially around Europe, I feel like these national teams really gang up and travel around the continent. So yeah, we do have someone coming in.
We do have, in fact, the French and the Slovakia coaches.
So
coming
we will know how it ended in full in just a moment.
Man, we do have some questions, and then listeners, if you have questions, watchers, if you have questions, let us know. Yep. Oh, it was 110-50, by the way, with France taking that match.
Okay, so it did end up.
Hey there.
Hi, buddy.
Hi. What do you think of my new rooster?
I do like your new rooster. We'll have to talk later.
Here we have.
Nice to meet
So
you.
hello and welcome. If you guys would introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'm Oliver from France. I'm the French captain this year. Yeah, and you've seen me in the
Creme de la Creme series.
Creme de la
where
Creme series.
Me and Tomek put you to the fire a little bit, made you talk finances as well for the French
it was
national
nice.
team.
It was nice. It was a nice interview. I loved it. Yep.
Okay, so I am Marek Lonka from Slovakia. I am in Team United Nations because Slovakia doesn't have a team right now, so I'm like a mercenary or something. So I went for nearby countries like Austria and Czech Republic and so on. I won there, so they said me, okay, you wanna come? Sure, why not? So I'm here and I somehow be the captain of France.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was your match that we
Yeah.
were actually waiting for to come in. We were over here, we're like, man, this looks a lot closer than we kind of anticipated at the outset. So kind of take us into it a little bit. Take us into your game first and kind of talk about kind of like
Okay, yes.
some of those moments. Like, what was kind of the key moments in that
Okay.
kind of came to be?
First thing, because when we choose the pairings, I didn't know who is playing the Black Templars. I just so Space Marines. Okay, I can handle that. And then at the table I saw him, and oh my god,
I've made a mistake. Maybe it came through your head. Yeah.
I'm screwed. So, but then we both played very tactically, and there were some small mistakes every now and then. So points swing one way or another way. I somehow managed to keep him from objectives the whole game. He had 0 primary. But the best part is turn 5. He is like 15 or 12 OC on the objective, 3 units. I just say, Shadow in the Warp. failed. Is mine, 15 points.
Are you trying to tell me that Shadow in the Warp, the rule that everybody dislikes, worked and did something?
I'm not saying it works. I'm saying it stole 6 points from the round. Yeah, it's not working. Just 6 points. All right.
So you're
I'll
just
say
saying
even
that to
more.
nobody
So
else. tried.
Battle Shock actually works.
Yes.
Battle Shocks. Yeah. So it was a very funny moment. I was like, what the fuck? Is it even possible? I am a Space Marine. I'm a freaking Space Marine.
They
Three,
shall
three,
feel no
four.
fear, right?
They shall know no fear. 15 freaking points. So 30 points because it's not +5, +15 and
Yeah,
Plus 15 for
30
him.
points swing. Yeah.
why the fun?
So take us through some of these. Like, so when you exited pairings, how did you feel? And we'll talk to each one at a time. So how did you feel coming out of pairings? Were you confident coming out of pairings? Did you think your pairings were really good?
Actually, we were not that confident because the United Nations play did very well. So we thought that we built some trap in the pairings that did not fell on.
Mhm.
So at the end, it was quite even. I believe the difference has been made on the table. And so we had no strategy on the table to be pushy or to be conservative at the start of the round.
And then how did you feel?
As I said before, I didn't know he was playing Black Templars, you know.
Yeah.
So we will. Our team, United Nations, we have the pot, France, Scotland, Iceland. We were like, it was just okay. We cannot win this. Let's try to be annoying and just kick somebody down.
Okay.
I like
Just
this pairing.
take down the captain. The rest is okay.
I
Fine, thank
like
you.
this pairing philosophy. Of like, I just want to be annoying and like pull points this
Yeah,
way.
pull points,
Because then you watch the commentators staring at the screen being like, man, this is very strange.
It is.
But also, like, what of the matchups were you like really excited to see, and which of the matchups do you think kind of flipped in your favor because it was very tight? This was a very tight.
Okay. I didn't even know the results.
I mean, it's 110 to 50, but it
Okay.
as we were going through it, outside of like a couple 20-0s towards France's favor, these are very close results in a lot of these games.
The problem is our team has met first time yesterday on a beer, you know. So we had the laptop, you know, and let's the pairings, the metrics, you know, and. Okay, I don't know what other guys put in. Basically, some guys had more confidence, like elder player. You know, elder player always puts 5 on everything, basically. So, and I was like, okay, I don't want to play elder because that's suicide.
We've started to see that philosophy of a few teams of just being like, look, you're going to have the best time for 30 minutes.
And that was the point because
Professional.
when they put me outside, okay, you put Eldar and yourself Black Templars. So my captain said, okay, you take the Eldars, you will be, you know, the scapegoat, I will be the one dying horribly, and the rest of the team can play the game. I told him, okay, I will fail this horribly. Let me try the Black Templar guy. I didn't know who it was, you know. I can manage close game at least, you know. Don't throw me away.
He's crying over here quietly.
I am.
So at least that way, I mean, the rest of pairing, I'm sorry, but I just let the captain do its stuff. I didn't actually engage in that, so I was like,
It was
okay,
Fred.
guys,
Fred
do
also
whatever
did
you
it, yeah.
want.
Fred Otto did
I
all
will
the
take care
pairings.
of the random Black Templar guy.
Yeah.
Fred Otto, who took second in War Masters.
Yeah. Not bad.
Not bad.
I was quite happy he was not playing as a captain. Yeah. Not to face him in the team.
Last minute yesterday, when he was going to top bracket, you know, the top 4, we were saying, okay, so who was us gonna break a leg and he has to play?
Yeah.
With,
Understand.
Just a piece of paper.
Okay.
you can
So-
say,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, go on.
So the pairings were quite tight, but I believe two tables are where we're really swingy. So we had the mirror of WTC Studio. So when you go 20 nail on the mirror, it's basically the difference is made on the table. So, or even maybe you initiative and you get first on the objective. I don't know. I didn't have time to talk to the players as you didn't, because we've done the same interview in the French Freedom Studio. And the other is Cold Genocider against Ultramarines. That is, it can be swingy because of infiltrators, because of desolation, and we're also 20 nil. So we managed to put the Eldar on the Knights. Yeah, so it's not 20 minutes, it's 15 minutes.
Okay, sorry. I apologize.
Yeah. and after that, I thought I was better on the Tyranids. And actually, I know that there's a scenario where they go wrong. And this scenario is your opponent do not want to die. So I was impacting those big beasts, 4-up involved, 5-up fill no pain, and that's a dice game. So it can go wrong on the 5-ups, fill no pain, or on 4-ups. It can, and it did. So I left two big beasts on 1 and 1.
Yes,
That's it. So it stole 8 points of primaries, and then this I missed the no escape roll, and this no escape roll, you had no way to fight on close combat. So I would have remained there with the whole army, the whole unit that was really strong, and then prevent my opponent to come to me. That was a 3-up. It can go wrong, and then these magical moments with the shadow in the warp. I can see now. I can say I've seen it. So yeah, the hive mind exists. I've seen it really close. Really close.
I got one last question for you. Do you think that next year we might have a full team Slovakia?
Okay, that's a really good question, because as of now, I can count like 3 players who are able at least to compete. One of them is not here.
Okay.
So we are only 2 somehow competing players, and we have to build up how many 8? You can take mercenaries up to, if they 5, you can take 3. I don't know. We have to build up, because Slovakia is like really, everybody is there play casually, not competitively. Everybody talk, the casual is the way to go, who is playing try hard or something, So it's really hard to convince people that this is the fun part. But maybe we will try. If they see us now, as United Nation, we have 3 guys. So maybe next year it will motivate more people. But it's 50-50, like dice roll.
Like 4-up, I get it. Fingers crossed, though. Thank you guys for coming on the stream. Good luck to both your teams tomorrow.
We look forward in anticipation to seeing more Shadow of the Warp shenanigans.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Good luck to your opponent. Yeah, it's gonna be Shadow of the Warp on turn 5. I have completely forgotten. Turn 5. You're right. Shadow of the Warp. One to see 30 points. Oh, touchdown!
But I really want to thank. Because
it was
really a pleasure to play.
Yeah,
here.
it was.
Yeah, I can tell you guys had a terrible time by the way you came.
Yeah, terrible.
It was an absolutely
awful. Yeah, definitely.
So those are the moments we replayed this game for, like that 30-point swing. Right, next on, we're going to have Marios from Team Cyprus as one of the newcomers to talk about how the game against USA went. See you.
See you. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Good luck.
Hello. Yeah, fine, thanks.
See you again. Yeah.
Good to meet you. So, how are you finding the event now that you're finally here?
Amazing. Like all the organization's great, the atmosphere is great, the people are amazing. So having lots of fun.
So you got Team USA in the
We
first
got
round
Team
of
USA.
pairings.
Yes.
How did you feel going into that, and what kind of was your experience? How did that go, and what kind of was the pairing process like for you when you were going into that?
First pairing process of this scale. We've never been to a team event of like this scale, eight
man.
team. So it was very interesting for us to see how we do and all of that. Now, as far as the games went, I think they went as good as anyone would expect. Not very good for us, but great experience to play those guys with so much experience. I got the honor to play against Sean Knighton, and was probably one of the most fun games for the game. So, and I think all of the guys can say the same. We had Space Marines into John Lennon's Custodies. They had so much fun, so many bad rolls. Custodies were getting wiped, Space Marines were getting wiped. It was quite fun for us, and I think we get a lot of experience for both pairings and for playing the game. We made a few mistakes in pairings that played a little bit of. They played a little bit of their in the last score, in the final score. But yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun. It was quite fun. It was really fun. And to be honest, I celebrated getting Team USA when you guys were doing the draw. I stood up, I punched my fist up on the desk. I was yelling, yes, Team USA. Just to get the experience of playing those guys.
No, that's really lovely to hear. I mean, looking at the scores, some people would probably come out a little bit demotivated out of that game, but like having you here with the positive attitude really builds up.
Sure.
Just really proves that it's the game at a competitive level. It's mostly fun, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. Like, I mean, for us, like, just the participation is great. Like, this was a dream a year ago when we created the team. So having the chance to be here and play against all these high quality, high caliber players from all around the world.
Why don't you talk to us a little bit about the process of getting that team together for your first WTC?
Well, it started with me knowing 3 other guys who played Warhammer, and saying, okay, we have 4 people. I talked with Tom Andriani, one of the organizers, and he said, well, you have 4 people, send me their IDs, and the team is established. And that's how it happened. Really. And then we met some wonderful, great guys from another city, from Limassol and from Paphos, Tom right here. And and we actually had quite a big, for our standards, qualification tournament. We had 10 people competing for 4 places, which I think for our standards was pretty decent. And we went from thinking that we're going to be using 4 mercenaries to actually finding people from Cyprus.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Which is great. And we posted on the Facebook pages in Cyprus, so all the gaming website, all the gaming pages, and people have shown interest. So hopefully the community grows, which is, I think it's the most important thing for us.
Already looking forward to next year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still early, but yeah.
Still very early, yes. Yeah, we're gonna have our qualification tournament, I think, in September. So I want to start getting some more practice, because we do feel like we could have more practice. We feel like it's our first time, so we learn a lot. We see also like talking to other teams. We see how they prepare, how they do like match pairings with screen games with other teams, etc. And we didn't know anyone really, and we got to meet some wonderful, great people over here. So we can do better practice against them and scream against them, and it's amazing. It's a great experience. No words for it.
Feels like a long way from just like 4 guys.
It feels a very long way from that. Yeah. It is like today, like last night, I had a little bit of goosebumps. Like, oh, it's our first game tomorrow. And actually, this morning, I felt like some crumbs in my stomach. Like, oh, it's actually happening. It's that butterflies, and it's great. It's great.
Well, that's great to hear, and you've already got like a development plan to be in make more further steps ahead for next year. That's also great.
Yeah, and looking forward to getting better. All of us, like the team, me, myself. Like I got 20-0 by Sean Knighton's Tyranids today. Great game. But yeah, it's like learning more about the game, because to be honest, like we feel like we're very new to the competitive scene, and so this is a huge experience for us. Hopefully, we can get a win at some point in this tournament. Let's see.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us,
Thank you
Mario.
for having us here.
Yeah, pleasure. Right, so Nathan, have we got all of the scores by now?
We do, I believe, have all of the scores now.
So,
So while we watch, instead, all the staff just over there from our other hosts just drink beer, I suppose, while
yeah,
we do all of the work.
the work, right? Yeah,
I will go through the scores just one more time for folks
yeah. Let's do that.
so they can kind of know how all of these ended up going. We'll start at the top with Australia versus New Zealand. Australia at 114 to New Zealand 46. We have England at 126 to Bulgaria's 34. We have Spain at 106 to Romania's 54. We have Germany at 114 to UN1, which is Malta, which is 46. We have France at 110 to UNA Slovakia at 50. We have Scotland over Iceland at 102 to 58. We have Belgium over Portugal, 110 to 50. We have Sweden at 142 to Israel at 18. We have Switzerland at 130 over Luxembourg, actually 230, which is the opposite of what Typhus told me just a minute ago about Luxembourg beating Switzerland.
So sorry, I didn't get the score. So how did it end?
Switzerland 130 to Luxembourg 30.
Oh,
So it
okay.
looks like maybe I was right about the captain's assumptions about how things were going, unfortunately, for
So it
Luxembourg.
seems- yeah.
But it does look like the Swiss team pulled that out.
Mhm.
Poland 119 to South Africa 41. Finland 100 to Wales at 60. Canada at 112 to Croatia at 48. Greece 42 to Italy's 118. The Netherlands winning 106 to Czechia's 54. I'm not going to make that mistake again, guys. It was put in my brain. It's going to be Czechia forever. Austria at 129 to Latvia's 31. Ireland drawing Norway at 82 to 78. And the USA beating Cyprus 148 to 12, though I think Cyprus definitely wins for being the friendly stuff people
Yeah,
that we get to meet.
definitely.
And then Denmark at 111 to Northern Ireland at 49. And that is all the results. So it looks like Luxembourg actually ended up losing Typhus 30 to like 100.
As I said. So anyway,
Doesn't want to admit he was wrong. That's okay. No, you said yeah. Okay. Sure.
anyway,
We'll rewatch the recording and check.
gonna watch
who's right.
it.
anyway, what I wanted to cover now, because I've saw some people actually asking for it, and that's what are the games tomorrow in the morning. So for those listening in the European time zones, they will be starting quite early because around 9. So for you might want to check the schedule that was posted on WTC fan page on Facebook. But when it comes to the rounds and who's playing who, if we can get the pods up again on the screen, then we can look at those pods and how they are actually playing against one another. So now, this round we had seed 1 against seed 4 and seed 2 against seed 3. So tomorrow what we're gonna do is have seed 2 play against seed 4 and seed 1 play against seed 3. So it still should not be as close. I think the differences between seed 1 and seed 3 and seed 2 and seed 4 are still big enough to warrant us not as many upsets. But what will be happening in the evening is more interesting, because then we'll have those seed 1s playing seed 2s, and that's where it can get spicy. Because also those seed 2s can gather information about seed 1s to have some additional data. How are they pairing? So how their player is playing. So I think that's where it's getting like even more interesting. But if we want to go through who's playing who, Nathan, you want to do it?
So in pod 1, we have, so that'll be seed 4, which is Croatia playing against Ireland, who is seed 2. And then we will have Canada, who is seed 1, playing against Norway, which will be seed 3. For pod 2, we will have UN1 playing against Switzerland and Luxembourg playing against Germany. In pod 3, we will have Israel playing against Greece, and Italy playing against Sweden, which could be interesting after today's
That's-
result
yeah,
with
yeah.
Italy.
I think that's the one that could be the potential upset, seeing how Italy just smacked Greece around.
In Pod 4, we will have Cyprus playing against Denmark and Northern Ireland playing against the United States. In Pod 5, we will have Czechia playing against Austria and Latvia playing against the Netherlands. In Pod 6, we will have South Africa against Finland and Wales against Poland. In Pod 7, we will have UNA, that's the Slovakia team again, who will be playing against Scotland, and Iceland will be playing against France.
That's another
That's an interesting
one, because they will have all the information about France from round 1, from what I know. So this one can be spicy.
And then in Pod 8, we'll have Bulgaria against Spain and Romania against England. And then in Pod 9, we will have New Zealand against Belgium, which I think could be interesting. And then Portugal against Australia.
Yeah, I think Belgium might not have prepared as much into New Zealand. So if New Zealand has prepared a little bit, I think that's another one that can be interesting. Because Belgium is renowned for their preparation.
Yes.
This one they might not be as proficient at, which actually came into play last year when they went out of the group. Suddenly their performance dropped off significantly because they didn't have as much of a preparation against their opponents as they did previously.
So I think this will be like a really exciting day too, although maybe we won't have as many...
Slower start,
Yeah.
but the evening, I think if you can tune in the morning, but in the evening, I think where the fun
You
will
have
begin.
to tune in.
Yeah, there's gonna be so much happening, so many interesting games that
And at the end of that, and after the round 2 tomorrow, this one will have these seedings essentially, correct?
Yeah.
We'll have the
so
seedings going into the next part of the tournament.
after we finish the final round, we'll know everything that's gonna be happening, who's gonna play who on Saturday, and that's where you'll see all those spicy matchups on Saturday morning. Like those seed 1 teams playing against each other. That's why I'm already hyped for to see those unveil.
This is the most excited I've seen Typhus is talking about the seeding part of this, where he gets to kind of get into the nitty gritty, I think, with Nathan over here about like the seedings and kind of some of those potential matchups.
Yeah, when it starts getting to the Swiss rounds, so Swiss pairings, that's it's real good.
Yeah,
It's real because we don't actually have to play in them. We don't have all the stress of playing them.
yeah.
So we just enjoy it. We can actually enjoy the matchups.
We can just talk to coaches and then just make a lot of bold
And
assumptions.
siphon their stress.
Because there's nothing more stressful than 4 people in yellow shirts like standing right behind you, watching your
100%,
every move.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we absolutely love doing that.
And you may, in fact, one of us may be wearing a bird hat as well, which we'll probably put on stream at some point. Oh my gosh! Or Tomek will.
You have been chosen.
You have been chosen. Yes, the ever popular bird hat from Creme de la Creme is now also made it all the way to Belgium, where we will probably tour it around at some point and maybe ask some fun bird questions of our team starting tomorrow, along with stats analysis, because I don't have time to do it right now in front of all of you, unless you really want to see me run Excel sheet programs right now.
But I'll be interested in seeing those data points tomorrow.
I'll
Yeah,
put
we
them
can
together
cover
for
them
tomorrow morning for
In
us.
the morning. Spicy.
I know. I'm going to try.
Right. No, you was going to. Okay.
Really?
And that's it for today, guys. So day 1's over for the teams event. Join us tomorrow morning at 9:30. I want to say, round about that time.
Or look at the schedule that will probably be up on the screen or in our comments section for this video.
So it's apparently on screen, I'm told. So have a look at that. Join us tomorrow. Like I said, it's only going to get better from now on. More interesting. So the studio stream today was brought to you by Tweak on the technical desk right now.
It's gotten a lot quieter in here, actually, because all of the teams have pretty much left, by the way.
Yeah, so we
This
do
is the
need
best
to
our
wrap
audio
up.
is probably going to get as well, from a perspective of nobody bothering us by yelling.
Stats Dad, Nathan.
Yes, thank you all for being here today to watch and listen to us natter on about various things. I've been Stats Dad.
And I've been Typhus.
And I've been other Nathan.
You sounded really sad.
I know my place in the world.
And I'm Joker from Contact Loss. Thanks, guys, and see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.